Chapter 9. Selling My Soul to the Devil. The afternoon I learned about Palo Mayombe in Aunt Maria's basement the same day I met New York City's highest-ranked godfather in the religion was a turning point for me. I knew I was going to a level in the spirit realm that others only dreamed about. In Palo Mayombe, you're dealing straight with the devil. You learn to make evil spirits do your bidding. By the time I left Aunt Maria's house it was dark outside, and I was excited as I stepped through the gate to head home. I knew I had to get the money together to do the initiation ceremony. It would cost me $3,500 to become a Palero, a priest for the dark side, but I already considered it money well spent. A few days later we all met up at my aunt's house, and the High Tata priest told those who were chosen to become priests of Palo Mayombe the do's and don'ts of the final ceremony, what procedures would take place, what time to be there, what to wear, but first would come a ritual performed in the mountains at night. I glanced around the room. Along with me, 16 other men stood ready to make a contract with the devil. The Tata told us that once you start the journey toward becoming a Palero, you can't turn back. The spirits exact a death sentence on any cowards who don't complete the ritual. A guy across the room caught my eye and quickly looked away. I could see fear stamped on his face. Another one looked vaguely puzzled, not knowing whether to say yes or no, but we all knew that saying no would not only be a death sentence, it would make us an embarrassment to the religion. The room throbbed with fear and excitement. We were stepping into something unknown, walking into this black hole called Palo Mayombe. Ritual in the mountains. 2 weeks later we met at a location in the Bronx and drove up into the hills, arriving there at 5 o'clock in the evening. It was already dusk when I got out of my car. We gathered together in a circle with the Godfather, and I could tell by his eyes that he was already half demon-possessed. He wore the same familiar bandana I remembered from the day I first met him in Aunt Maria's basement. No one spoke. We waited to take our cues from him. The Tata tilted his head back and half closed his eyes. "Mi padre, my father, this is your son," he intoned in a sing-song voice. "I'm coming into the mountain, I'm coming into your house. I'm asking permission to come into your presence. I love you, I love you, I love you. This is your son. Receive this ceremony and the offering I bring." As he chanted, he gripped a bottle of white rum in one hand and a cigar in the other. Turning to head up the mountain, he led the way, blowing cigar smoke, spraying rum, and tossing 21 pennies as a gesture of respect to the spirits waiting for us up in the hills. Zarabunda, Siete Reyes, and Madre Agua. We fell in line behind him, echoing his words like a chorus. A few other people lingered in the playground area and parking lot, eyeing us strangely, but we didn't care. We were bold and fearless, and they stared wide-eyed as the high priest led the way, chanting songs to the spirits. A second priest gripped a giant machete in his hand, holding it up as we climbed the mountain. The dark evergreens and leafless oaks stood out like black silhouettes at the top of the mountain, and the bone-chilling cold cut through me. I watched as the high priest approached a specific tree in the woods. He sprayed it with rum from his mouth, then blew cigar smoke and placed the machete on the ground in front of the tree. On each side of the blade he drew a straight line with symbols of skulls and crosses. He turned his back to the tree out of respect for the spirits and lit up the machete with gunpowder. A puff of black smoke appeared. Somebody gasped at the small explosion. I fought the urge to see who it was, knowing the ritual demanded my full respect and attention. "You two come forward, and the rest stay behind," the Tata said, his eyes boring into mine. He gestured for me and Aunt Maria to go first. 2 by 2 we came to the tree, rolled up our pants above the knees, removed our shoes and socks, and kneeled on the frozen ground. As a male, I had to remove my shirt, and we both placed our hands up against the tree while the Tata sprayed rum and blue cigar smoke on us, chanting a strange language. We could not move or open our eyes for about 15 minutes, an eternity of time when the temperature is near zero. It was so cold the palms of my hands stuck to the tree from the frost, and I shook like a leaf. But I wasn't about to turn back. I was fascinated, not fearful. The tangible power in the wooded clearing was indescribable. After each of the initiates completed their ritual, we headed back down the mountain. As the Godfather walked along he sang, and once again we repeated the chants. At the bottom of the mountain, the people still hanging out stared at us as if they had seen a ghost. The irony hit me and I laughed to myself. Not a ghost but something a lot more powerful. We got in our cars and left, losing my soul. The final part of the priesthood ceremony took place a week later in Aunt Maria's basement. We weren't allowed to eat from noon onward that day, and the ceremony started at 6 p.m. Excitement pulsed in my veins. By midnight that evening I would belong to Satan, and I would bear the marks on my body to prove it. As I approached the house on foot, I could feel the rhythm of the conga drums vibrating on the night air. The sound of chanting inside told me that those who came to watch the ceremony, seasoned priests of the religion, were beckoning the spirits, setting the spiritual atmosphere for what would take place that night. The morning after the ceremony, I stepped quietly into the bathroom, leaned into the mirror, and looked at my reflection. My dark eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of the contract I had made the night before. The cross-shaped cut on my forehead still oozed, raw and bloody, and the various other cuts on my body stung the way untreated wounds always do, especially after a night of sleeping on a cold concrete floor. I changed into a clean set of clothes, all white, and put on a baseball cap to cover the wound on my forehead. Not wanting to wake the other initiates, who were still asleep on the basement floor, I slipped out the door as silent as a mouse and headed for the nearest diner. The diner bustled with early morning business, and as I stood in line at the counter I thought back to everything that had happened the night before. Next. "Can I help you?" the counter clerk said. I turned my eyes toward the woman and she recoiled. Instantly I knew she could sense the evil in me. "I'll have a chocolate donut and a hot chocolate," I said, my eyes boring into hers. The woman's hand trembled as she rang up my order. "Are you all right?" she asked in a timid voice. I lifted up my hat and showed her the cross carved into my flesh. "I just sold my soul to the devil last night." She went pale. "Oh, my God. Anything else you want to know? Just give me my donut." I threw my money on the counter and waited for the order to come up. As I waited, I felt a presence of something else in the diner. Something I couldn't put my finger on. I turned to look down the length of booths that lined the wall of the diner. Nothing but customers, regular people out for breakfast and their daily caffeine fix. Years Later I learned that a woman sitting at a back booth with a friend saw me dressed all in white and knew that I was a pale rotata. Unbeknownst to me, she lifted her hands in prayer that day, and her prayers were for me. Demons on assignment. My pact with the devil only caused me to step up the clubbing scene. I stepped into bars and clubs and lounges so often they seemed more familiar than my own home. The taste of wine and the sound of jazz and salsa music blended into a never-ending haze of casting spells by day and recruiting souls by night. There was a lounge in my neighborhood where all the pretty people loved to go, and one Tuesday night I got myself ready and headed out alone because at this point almost no one in the religion wanted to hang with me like Joe. They thought I was too far gone. It was a world of jealousy, a love/hate religion, and people would not hang out with you if they thought you were more powerful than they were. Even the bartenders dreaded to see me come in, knowing I would steal all the pretty women at the bar. I could read it in their eyes. We don't have a chance now that you're here. A big bouncer collected admission fees at the door to the bar. When he looked at me, fear gripped him and he waved me inside. Go away, man. Gone on. Don't worry about it. Cool, I said, and started to go inside. Wait a minute, the bouncer said. He threw some chips in my hand to buy free drinks with. As I made my way to the bar, I said hello to a few people I knew, got a seat at the corner of the bar, and looked across to the opposite side. There sat Carlos, an NYPD officer who was also in the religion, so I went over and we started shooting the breeze. Deep into the night a girl named Jennifer, one of my favorite young ladies, made her way from downtown to the Bronx to hang out with me. After she located me at the bar, I introduced her to Carlos and we all started talking and laughing. Jennifer was the type who liked to roam around the place to get attention. Beautiful from head to toe, with light brown eyes, she grabbed everyone's attention as soon as she came in. As she paraded herself through the bar, tossing her long black hair, my friend and I kept talking about the religion and his police work. Hey, John, Carlos said sometime later, nudging me. Your date's over there entertaining two guys at the bar. I glanced in the direction he indicated and shrugged. Are you planning to do something about it? 'Cause if so I've got your back. I swallowed a mouthful of wine and set the glass on the counter. She's nothing but a piece of furniture, Carlos. Don't worry about it. By the end of the night I guarantee you she'll be back by my side. Suddenly I had an idea. You want to see how strong my demonic powers are? I asked Carlos. He nodded, so I called to the bartender and told him to give me a white napkin and a pen. I drew symbols of Palo Mayombe on the napkin to call upon demonic spirits to show up at the bar and confuse the atmosphere. As that took place, Siete Reyes showed up. I could feel his presence in the bar. I knew that night the bar was never going to be the same. The place heated up like it was on fire. And people seemed very uneasy, not understanding what was going on. As the night drew to a close, Jennifer jumped off her stool across the bar and made her way to me, wrapping her arms around my back. The two guys she'd been partying with strolled over in my direction, and I looked at them and smiled. I pointed my finger at them. You're police officers, I said, and they froze in their tracks because they were undercover cops, not uniformed policemen. See? I said. She's leaving with me, but you too will learn a lesson tonight that you will never forget. Not because of her, she means nothing to me." The two men looked confused. "What are you talking about, man? What are you trying to say?" I stared them down. "You know what I'm talking about. You're police officers, and I'm going to teach you a lesson about respecting people. You will know that this night you messed with the devil." I turned around and left the bar with Jennifer. 3 weeks later I was bored at home and decided to make my way to the lounge in my neighborhood. As I took a seat at the bar, Louis the bartender approached me and said, "What's up? How you been?" "Nothing new," I answered. "Just the same old, same old. I just wanted to come out and hear some jazz and have a nice chill glass of wine." "Anything for you, John," he said. As I sat at the bar, a few minutes later Lou came over and leaned down close. "There are two gentlemen across the bar, and they're afraid of approaching you, but they want to know if they can buy you a drink." I looked across the bar and recognized the two guys I had encountered 3 weeks ago, the ones who had partied with Jennifer. "Lou, they don't have to buy me a drink," I said. "I got my own money." "Who are they to think they can buy me a drink? If they want to come over and talk to me, so be it." As the two men came over, they wore a look of respect and fear on their faces. "Can we talk to you for a few minutes?" they said. "My name is Rick, and this is my partner, Tony. What can I do for you?" I said. The guy named Rick spoke first. "We've been coming here for 3 weeks looking for you. We wanted to tell you we're sorry for what happened that night with the girl. We stayed away from her, we haven't called her. We wanted you to know that something we could never imagine happened to us in our apartment. We just want to call peace with you, so whatever you sent to our apartment, you can remove it." I was laughing inside. I knew what had happened, but I acted like an innocent little boy, waiting to hear the full story of what took place that night. Rick glanced at Tony and started talking first. When we got home that evening, we decided to call it a night and headed for our rooms. Sometime that night after we fell asleep we heard noises in the living room and kitchen, like a person was walking around the apartment. It was crazy, man. We both were feeling the same thing, but we were in two different rooms. Dishes rattled, heavy steps thudded through the living room, and the apartment went ice cold. Paralyzed with fear, we finally reached for our guns and got up. As we headed to the living room, the sound got louder, and when Tony and I came into the room we heard maniacal laughter even though we could see that nothing was there. Rick turned and looked at his friend Tony. "Right, Tony. Isn't that what happened?" "Look at my pendant of San Lazaro," Tony said. "It got twisted like a pretzel. We wanted to run out of the house, and we stayed up all night, unable to sleep. This went on for a few nights in a row. That's when we decided to come to the bar and call it peace. We wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding. Are we cool? The next time you disrespect me in any way, I'll be going to your funeral," I said, sipping my wine nonchalantly. "I will withdraw the demon that I sent over to your house, but don't let it happen again." From that night on we became good friends. Warlock for hire. Casting spells is not just what warlocks do, it's what they do for money, and if you're good the opportunities can be lucrative. Anyone looking for a shortcut to success, or influence with the right people, or a witchcraft hitman to take somebody out would call on me. If the price was right and the job appealed to me, I took it. One day I ran into a friend of mine named Big John. Big asked me for help in finding him a job because he knew how strong my powers were. I was the real thing, a pale rotata, and you couldn't get any higher in the occult. Naturally the spell worked. Big landed the job of his dreams, but at a price. His life would be indebted to the demonic spirits that now controlled his life. Big and I had a lot in common: fast cars, beautiful women, smooth liquor, and noisy clubs. Every once in a while when I went to the club in my neighborhood, I would run into him. The next time I saw Big, he approached me about a favor for a friend, a young girl named Courtney who was in trouble. He kept pestering me to help this girl, and each time he did I told him no. But he persisted, saying she would pay me a lot of money for my services. I laughed at him. Do I look like I need money? I managed to stay away from Big John for a while because I really didn't want to help this Courtney girl. But 2 months later I ran into him again with the same request. I was sick of hearing it. So I attended a demonic feast where many mediums were possessed, and there I took the opportunity to ask for advice. I asked a demon spirit what he thought about me helping Courtney. The spirit told me not to hold back on her or anyone else who wanted help because it would make all the demons in my life happy. A few days later I caught up with Big John and told him I would help his lady friend. He gave me Courtney's number, so I called her up at work and arranged for her to have a reading done at my place. Come to my house with Big John at 8 p.m., I said. Since I was dealing with a total stranger, I had to know first what kind of favor she wanted and why. The night of the reading, Big showed up at my door with Courtney. I ushered them into the living room, and Courtney handed me a large paper bag. I opened it to inspect what was inside. Good. Everything I had instructed her to bring was there: the candles, the liquor, along with $21.21. I told them to sit and relax while I fetched some cold soda from the kitchen. While they waited, I went into my closet, closed the door, and chanted over the cauldron, blowing cigar smoke into the cast iron pot until 2 high-ranking demons showed up. The cauldron, or jewel, is a cast iron pot weighing over 100 pounds with the devil's face engraved on it. It is an important part of witchcraft, a place to meet with the devil and his demons, a place of pure evil that grips you with fear from head to toe. It is the devil spot where the supernatural meets the natural, to induce powers beyond human comprehension and evil that can be felt and touched. You can use it to kill, steal, and destroy those who get in your way. I was a hitman in the supernatural who could take out you and your family or anyone else I was hired to destroy. How can you stop something this evil and unseen when it is sent to attack you and destroy your life? That is the purpose of the cauldron. And I was one of the best at using this demonic tool to accomplish hell on earth. I could feel the demon's presence and I knew who they were. They introduced themselves in my spirit. A few minutes later I was transformed into someone other than me, possessed with one of the demons. Although possessed, I was very conscious of what needed to be accomplished. Now it was time to begin Courtney's reading. But everything had to go right. It was a very sacred moment. Back in the living room, Courtney sat across from me at the table. Everything was set. Now, would come the interrogation. Whatever I ask, I want you to answer yes or no. No explanations or stories. Understand? That was the first question I threw at her. It was a test. Yes, she said. I looked her straight in the eye and asked her the next question. I know that you came from a broken home, and you've been abused. Yes or no? Yes. So far she was telling the truth. You also have a boyfriend, and he's physically abused you. And you had 2 abortions and 1 miscarriage. Her answer had to be yes. Yes. As the reading went on, the demonic symbols I had drawn on the floor prior to the reading looked as if they were on fire. I know you were fired from your job. Yes, she said. A sneaker store. Yes. I know you stole from there. Courtney went silent. No. No. The demons told me to stop the reading. I banged my fist on the table. You're a liar. Get out, and don't you ever come back. Courtney began crying out loud. Big John looked shocked at what took place. I answered before he could even ask the question. This piece of trash was trying to deceive me. Courtney spoke up. The reason I lied was because I wanted to find out if you were the real thing. You want to see the real thing? I said. Okay, I'll prove it. You stole $20,000 from your boss, and he's taking you to court to put you in jail. Courtney started crying again. It was my boyfriend. He said he'd leave me if I didn't take care of him. You're supporting this lowlife, aren't you? I asked her. She didn't have to tell me how. Every man who had come into her life treated her the same way. I've been to plenty of tarot readers, Courtney said. All phonies. But never have I met anyone like you. I told Courtney to leave because I didn't deal with liars. But she pleaded with me to help her get out of trouble. That's when a demon whispered to me, tell her on the next visit, she can make a contract with us. 4 nights later she came over to my place with Big John as witness to initiate the witchcraft ritual. She brought all the ingredients, a recipe from hell to destroy her enemies who were accusing her. This was to be a very serious meeting. Foolishness was punishable by death. Courtney agreed to do whatever the demons wanted. If she was convicted in a court of law, she would face 5 years in prison and a $20,000 fine to make up for her employer's losses in stolen cash and merchandise. The demons promised that if she kept her end of the contract, there was no need to worry. The first step to Courtney's acquittal required a spiritual cleansing. This was not an initiation ceremony to induct her into the religion, but rather a ritual used to get people out of situations they were guilty of. The atmosphere was thick. Even the roosters felt the fear of what was going to happen. Next they were about to be beheaded, their feet hacked off, and their blood poured into the prepared cauldron as an offering to strengthen the agreement in Courtney's contract for an acquittal. As Big and Courtney were leaving the apartment, I assured her that her accusers would experience hell itself. I was going to punish them like they'd never been punished before. 3 days later, Courtney went to court. That morning the judge was in a foul mood. The top prosecutor would be coming in late. Actually, he wouldn't be coming in at all. A bad car accident had landed him in the hospital, and he was the stand-in for the first attorney, who had mysteriously gotten ill. Now a pair of backup lawyers would have to take the place of the one hospitalized. And as soon as they arrived, the circus began. They just couldn't get their facts together, and because of that they disagreed with each other, and they were on the same team. Toward the end of the grueling trial, when the frustrated judge shouted at both opposing lawyers for arguing with him and for babbling confusing nonsense, he finally summoned the jurors into the jury room to deliberate. A short time later, everyone shuffled out of the room and back to the jury box. They had reached a decision. With the slam of the gavel, the judge made the announcement, the case was dropped and all charges against Courtney were dismissed. Although the defending lawyer wore a big smile, I wore a bigger one. How easily deceived they all were. That day, Courtney and I thought we were winners. With the trial over, Courtney eventually became my goddaughter in the religion and resumed her life. But she would never get to enjoy it. Now that she had been introduced to witchcraft, there was a price to pay. Her life was no longer hers, to do with as she wanted. She belonged to the demons she had dared to seek help from. Although Courtney never spent a day in jail for what she did, her real prison sentence was just beginning. She would be a victim, owned by the spirits of Espiritismo, Santeria, and Palo Mayombe for life.